Howdy folks, welcome to the Hillbilly Kitchen. Today we're roasting a turkey. Now we're going to take all the mystery out of cooking frozen turkey, and we're going to take all the fear out of cooking frozen turkey, and we're going to help you get a turkey on the table without having to worry about it, that won't send anybody to the emergency room. There's just a few simple kind of rules that if you follow them, your turkey will come out just fine, and you can get fancy with it if you want to, but if this is your first turkey, or if you haven't had a whole lot of success roasting a turkey in the past, you might want to keep it simple this year. You can add all kind of fresh herbs and spices, you can stuff it, you can add vegetables, but that all adds to the stress and the worry and the maybe something going wrong. So all we're going to do today is make a basic roasted turkey. Now, the only thing I have done to mine so far is take it out of the bag. And normally I would do that over the kitchen sink, and I would keep all that in the sink right up to the point where I was ready to put it in the pan and put it in the oven. And that's because you don't want to cause cross-contamination with your raw turkey. It splatters, there's a lot of liquid in the turkey when you open it, and you don't want to get that all over your countertops and then set other food on that and have people get that in cooked food that's already cooked, or food that you're not going to be cooking at all. Like if you're doing fruit and veggie platters, that's a really good way to make people sick. So when you're dealing with a turkey, you want to make sure you have a sink full of hot soapy water to wipe everything down. Maybe some of these disposable disinfectant wipes, everybody's got those around right now. It seems like fear of getting sick has literally controlled the whole world for the last 2 years almost now. So certainly we don't want to make people sick with Thanksgiving dinner. Let's keep it clean. That's the biggest thing. And the only other thing is getting it done. And we're going to talk about that as we go on. Now, in all honesty, you don't have to add anything to this turkey to cook it, because most of the frozen turkeys are they're pre-basted with salt water, and you could cook it just like this, but it's not going to have a ton of flavor. So I do like to add a little seasoning to it, and I season mine the exact same way I season my chicken. I use salt and pepper and honey and lemon juice and onion powder. Those are really good seasonings for any kind of poultry. You can use sage or poultry seasoning or anything else that you want to put in it. That's entirely up to you. Just, you know, if you have, most cooks have a set of spices, a set of flavors that they like, and they use them in almost everything they cook. Well, this is my basic spices right here. And if you have your basic spices, that flavor that everybody likes, put it in there. A lot of people like to add a little bit of hot pepper. That's fine. You know, even Cajun seasonings or stuff like that. Do whatever you like. But this is how I like to season it. And you can adjust the spices based on how big your turkey is. This is only a 12-pound turkey. As far as picking a turkey weight, your pre-cooked weight, if you're going to have people over for dinner and then they're going to be sticking around and having a turkey sandwich after dinner, you're going to want at least a pound per person. And you're going to want close to a pound per person, even if most of them aren't sticking around, because a lot of your turkey's weight is not going to end up being there once it's cooked. All the juices are going to be gone out of it, and we're going to remove a big part of it. We're going to remove the giblets of the neck before we even start cooking it. And most of the skin, nobody's going to eat that. That's all going to be removed. So you want about a pound per person that you're feeding. But a 12-pound turkey, you could feed, Oh goodness. Well, I wouldn't do more than 10 to 12 people with a 12-pound turkey, and you're not going to have a whole lot of leftover. So kind of keep that in mind. Now the next thing that we're going to do to keep everything clean, which is actually the first thing we're going to do to keep everything clean, is we're going to get all of our spices out. Whatever kind of spices you want to use, get those out first and get you a jar with a lid on it. And we're going to add those to the jar and we're going to shake them up. Now I've got about 2 tablespoons of onion powder and I'm going to use all of that. And I have about 2 teaspoons of pepper. I'm going to use all that. I've got about 2 teaspoons of salt, and I'm going to use about half of that because, like I said, my turkey does have salt in it already. And if you are on no salt or low salt diet, of course, leave that out. Now, I've got 1/4 cup of lemon juice and honey, and I think that's probably a little bit too much for this 12-pound turkey. So I'm not going to use quite all of it. I'm going to use maybe 3 tablespoons of each instead of the 1/4 cup. The honey will make it just a little bit sweet, and the onion powder is going to just add loads and loads of flavor. And so is the lemon juice. Now, if you happen to not like lemon juice, don't put it in there. And if you don't want the honey, of course, don't use it. The lemon juice also helps make it a little bit more tender. And that's one of the reasons why I use it in poultry. Now just put the lid on your jar, make sure it fits good and tight, and shake all your spices up. What this does is once we get our turkey cleaned out and cleaned up a little bit, we're not going to have to pick up our individual spice jars and touch them after we've touched the turkey. And we can put some of this inside of it and some of it on the top of it. So just get that all shook up real good. All right, let me move all this stuff here out of the way because, like I said, I don't want to get a lot of cross-contamination going on here. I did want to talk about pans for just a second. This is a roasting pan. It has a lid, it has a rack in it. These are great if you happen to have one. This will actually be my first Thanksgiving with one. I have never had one of these to cook my turkey in before, but this makes it really easy to lift the turkey out of the pan once it's done, obviously because it's on the rack. And it also has the lid on it, which keeps all of the moisture in. If you have one of these, wonderful. If you don't worry about it. You don't have to have it. These are not that much though. I think I only paid $15 or $16 for this. The problem is, where do I store it after Thanksgiving? This is just an aluminum foil pan. It has kind of a rack built into the bottom of it. These were 99 cents my whole life. This year I think it was $1.47, so they're not that much. These are really nice because you don't have to clean them up after Thanksgiving. If you're using one of these foil pans, you do want to put a cookie sheet under it. And it says they're good for up to 12 pounds, but watch what happens, or I'm sorry, up to 20 pounds, but watch what happens with my 12-pound turkey. So, you want to put a cookie sheet under it. You don't want to lift that out of your oven without something solid under it. Any kind of cookie sheet will work just as long as it's stiff enough to hold your turkey. And if you use this foil pan, you're going to want to cover your turkey with foil to keep that moisture in there. And you could even get 2 of these pans and just kind of seal them up around the edges together and use them like a roasting pan if you didn't want to put the foil up against your turkey. Okay, let me move this over here. Now, all of these frozen turkeys have a pop-up timer in them. I usually leave it in there just, I don't know, because it's in there. If you happen to get a turkey that doesn't have a pop-up timer, you want to stick it with a meat thermometer. The FDA says you want it to have an internal temperature of at least 165 degrees. Cooking times are going to vary a lot depending on your oven. If you have an oven with convection roast, certainly that's going to be way faster than an oven that is not convection at all. If it's just convection, you're going to get it done a lot quicker. And just a regular oven, you're going to want at least 20 to 25 minutes per pound in a regular oven. And like I said, you can cut that down if you have convection or convection roast. If I cooked a 24-pound turkey one year for my husband's family, and after 10 hours, that turkey was still very, very pink and it was not done. We ended up having to cut chunks of it off and just cook it in chunks, put it in the oven and finish cooking it. There's a lot of talk about overcooking it in a dry turkey and all that stuff. It is very hard to overcook a turkey to the point where it is dry. If your turkey is pink and chewy, your turkey is not done. It's going to make people sick. I don't care what the pop-up timer says. I don't care what thermometer poked in it says. You don't want a pink, chewy turkey. You're going to have that trip to the ER. The meat should be white when it's cooked, and it should be very tender to the point of falling apart. That's in order to keep from making anybody sick and not having to worry about it. You should be able to see the breastbone when it's done, and it'll pop up in the center of your turkey. You'll be able to see it through the skin. But make sure you get it done. I'll kind of put some more stuff about recommended cooking times in the description. I would allow plenty of time. And what we're going to do is we're going to seal this up and we're going to leave it in the oven until we're sure it's done. And then when we take it out, we're going to let it sit and rest for about 15 minutes. And while it's resting, we're going to baste it during that 15 minutes. And that will ensure that it is moist and it won't be dry and it will have plenty of flavor. Okay, now we have to get to removing the parts of this turkey that you don't want to cook. And if you want to stuff it, of course, you have to remove those parts before you can stuff it. All right, in his neck, if you lift up, actually I hope this is a her or a hen. If you lift up the skin, turn my turkey up here where you can see it, there is a bag. And that bag has all of the turkey's organs in it. You have to remove that. And then you want to tuck this skin back in the turkey to help hold the moisture and the flavor in. Well, actually, we'll tuck that back in after we season it and clean it up. In the back end, they always have this plastic thing that holds the legs together, and I'm going to use that while I bake it. But they also have the turkey's neck. Now, they put his neck up his backside and have his insides in his neck. Now, you don't want to cook it with this in here. If you want to use this, you can boil it until the meat falls off of it, and you can use it for broth. But you would want to strain it because there is a ton of little bitty bones in here, and you want to be very, very careful if you cook this. Lots of people boil this and then they use the broth off of this to make their dressing or their gravy or stuff like that. The same thing with this. People will cook it for that. Okay, now the other thing that we want to do before we season this is we do want to wash it. I saw something on the internet said don't wash your turkey. I don't know why on earth you would not want to wash your turkey. I mean, it's got all this stuff in it. I wash mine, I clean it up. I've even gotten turkeys before that had visible stuff on them that just looked dirty. So I'm going to take this over to the sink, wash it up a little bit, and put it in the red roasting pan, and then we'll be right back. Okay, I got my turkey all washed, and now it's ready to season it. Give your spices another good shake to make sure they're blended up really well. And the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to just start putting this all over the turkey, and we're going to put some of it up inside the turkey. You could rub it and really massage it in there. I've seen people do that. But that's not really necessary because all of the juices from this turkey are going to be in the pan, and it's kind of going to be cooked in the juices. Now, if you like your turkey super juicy, here's a trick that my mother-in-law used. She would always turn it upside down and roast it with the breast down in the pan, so that this part of the turkey stayed down in the juice in the pan the whole time it was cooking. And that does make it quite a bit juicier. Brett always liked his just a little bit dry. I mean, of course, he didn't like it like choke you to death dry, but he didn't like it cooked that way. He thought it ended up with too much grease in it, because all of the skin on the turkey obviously is full of fat, so you're cooking your breast in that fat the whole time, and it does tend to give it a little bit more of an oily taste, I guess, for lack of a better word. But now we're going to pour the rest of this kind of inside here, or some of the rest of it. I'm going to save a little bit more for the top, and we're going to lift it up and pour a little bit in the other end. Kind of get it all inside there. All right, that looks pretty good there. Okay, now we're going to kind of bundle our turkey up here just a little bit. Make sure you got your handles where you can get a hold of them when the turkey's done. Oops. If you have one of these pans. The skin on his neck, like I said, you want to kind of fold it up and seal that neck cavity up. You can use a string for this if you don't want to leave this plastic on here, but they are actually made to go in the oven, and that will hold your turkey's legs up and in place. Okay. Kind of seal that end up. Now, if you want to pretty your turkey up a little bit, you got to do something with these little wing tips. There's not really enough on there to even eat. You can break it and then take your scissors and cut it off. I've also seen people bend them and tuck them in, but you know, that's just whatever you want to do. If you want to tuck it up under there, you kind of stick it up under the leg. Let's make a little cut right here, and we'll poke that up in there, and that keeps that from burning. If you don't do that, that little wingtip will burn, and your turkey will look bad because it has the little burned wingtips on it. But you can tuck him up in there in that skin around the leg and leave it on there if you want to. This is the most lopsided turkey. And that's basically all there is to it. Now, you want to wash your hands really good before you go touching anything else, because you have touched the turkey. And we're just going to put it in the oven, sealed up. Either cover it with foil if you're using one of the little pans, or keep your lid on it. And I'm going to cook mine at about 325. And it's going to depend on your oven whether you want to do 325 or 350. I don't recommend cooking it any lower than 325, because again, you want to make sure it cooks fast enough to get it hot enough, quick enough, so that you don't make anybody sick. But if you cook it higher than 350, it will make it tough because it will cook it too fast. And when you cook meat too fast, any meat, it does tend to make it tough. And the only other thing that will tend to make it tough is if it's not thawed. If you cook frozen meat without thawing it out first, it will be tough. So make sure it's thawed out. If you pull out the neck and the giblets and stuff and you hadn't had it in the refrigerator long enough to thaw it out, you can finish thawing it out under running water, and that'll thaw it out really quick without spoiling it. But don't just leave it sitting on the countertop for half a day, and don't put it in a big pool of hot water and leave it sitting in there. That's not good. Just turn on either all cold, or you can warm it up slightly, especially if you're trying to work with it and thaw it out and your hands are in it. But you don't want to do hot water, just cold running water, and it'll thaw out really quick. But thaw it out before you cook it. Season it however you like it. Cover it 325 to 350. No hotter than 350, and I wouldn't go any cooler than 325. And we're going to cook it anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes a pound, depending on your oven. Okay, our turkey is done. Now, this is what you want to see when it's done. Of course, your little pop-up timer should be popped up if you had a pop-up timer, and all the frozen turkeys do. And I leave it in there, like I said, just for peace of mind. That way, it's an extra assurance that the turkey is done. Now, I didn't do anything to it except let it cook. I use the convection roast on my oven, and this is the first year I've ever had an oven with the convection roast because I wanted to see how long it took. I knew it would be much, much faster, and it is much, much faster. If you happen to have that on your oven, it literally cuts the cooking time almost in half. My mother-in-law used to have this big roasting pan, and she would use that to make her turkeys in. It was an electric thing that she plugged in, kind of like a crock pot, only it was a turkey roaster, but it was like this big, and she kept asking everybody in the family if they wanted one, and everybody's like, we have nowhere to put it. It was like way bigger than this roasting pan even. So if you have that, though, either the convection roast on your oven or one of those roasting pans, you can do it much faster. This only took about 2.5 hours. In my old oven, it would have taken at least 4.5 to 5 hours. So cuts it way down. Now, some of you might be saying, well, the skin is a little brown for my taste. You're not really going to eat the skin anyway. And you know it's done, and it is pretty. I mean, it's a little brown on the edges, I'll admit that, but not bad. And that you're not going to eat that at all. The turkey under it is going to be a nice color. And what we're going to do so that our turkey doesn't taste dry is while it's resting, we're just going to baste it. And you can use a turkey baster if you have one. I bet you I've had 1,000 turkey basters over the years, and they have all ended up in Brett's garage and are no longer suitable for basting a turkey. And I didn't think to get one this year when I went out and got the stuff to do this turkey. You can see here, because we tucked our little wings, they're not all burned. A lot of times they are just absolutely black when you take it out of the oven. But what this is going to do is it's going to keep our turkey from being dry, and it will soak this up while it's resting. Now, if you don't want this dark brown here, if you really, really want to set an absolutely perfect looking table, if you will check on it about every 30 to 45 minutes and baste it while you're cooking it, it won't do that. But if you're cooking it in a regular oven, or you're cooking a great big one, and you're going to be cooking it for 4 or 5 hours, checking on it every 30 minutes is an awful lot of work. So you really don't have to do that. Just when you take it out, make sure you pour some of the juices over it so it can soak that up while it's cooling down a little bit. You do want to give it at least 15 minutes before you cut it. Now, as far as slicing it goes, you can slice it, put the turkey on the platter hole and do the slices off the turkey like they do on the TV. And if you're setting a big table, or, and you don't have a ton of guests, that works out all right. But if you're serving 10 to 20 people, what I would do is I would slice it, take it off the bone and slice it, because you can literally split right down here, take the skin off, split your turkey, and you can peel the breasts off in 2 pieces. Then you can pull off the legs and all the dark meat and slice the breasts that way and cut them like this instead of like this. Cutting them like this also, the turkey, the muscle in the breast runs this way. So if you slice it this way, your turkey is going to tend to be kind of stringy. But if you take the breasts off and then you slice it this way, you're not going to have that long stringy turkey that you get. And if your turkey's not good and done, or it's a little bit tough, and you slice it the way that the muscle runs and you have those strings, it's going to make it seem even tougher. But if you take it off and then you slice it across the breast, you're not going to have that. And just the way you slice it is going to make it taste more tender. That's just about all of my turkey roasting tips. Like I said, make sure it's thawed before you start. Make sure you get it done, and make sure you wipe everything up after you've handled the raw turkey, because you don't want that getting all over everything else in your kitchen while you're cooking Thanksgiving dinner. A trip to the ER on Thanksgiving is just no fun for anybody. So be safe with it, be clean with it, and get it done. And that's all you got to do. And you don't have to worry about anything else. Like I said, you don't need to get fancy with spices. You don't need to put vegetables in it. This is a perfectly beautiful turkey. And once you take the skin off and you slice it up and serve it, it's going to be even prettier. Now, if you want to leave it whole and serve it, I would recommend trimming the skin back here and trimming the skin up in the front before you put it on your platter. It just makes it prettier. So trim up that extra skin before you put it on the platter if you're going to serve it whole. And of course, take this ugly little plastic thing off here. Because this is our Thanksgiving video, and this time of year folks try to get in a more thankful spirit, I guess, I want to leave you with Psalms 104. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving, enter into his courts with praise. Be thankful to him and bless his name. If we could get in that spirit of living in thanksgiving all the time, always counting our blessings and being thankful for what we have, our lives will not only be more fruitful, they will be more enjoyable. Because when you are thankful for what you have, the things that you don't have don't seem to be so important. If we look at the good, the bad is not so bad. So this year, I really hope that you can find things to be thankful for. And in the comment section, I want you to leave something that you are thankful for. And if we all list the things that we are thankful for, maybe that will encourage others to look for things that they can be thankful for. This year especially, with what's gone on, I am so thankful for the assurance of my salvation and the eternal peace that has given me, that is just beyond any words I can possibly express. And I am also thankful for the family that I still have in my life. Thank y'all so much for joining us in the Hillbilly Kitchen. Happy Thanksgiving. If you have not already, please don't forget to click like and subscribe before you leave. And until next time, remember to put God first.